Some fantastic ball games. Week 10, we saw Munich. Germany seems ready for an NFL franchise. Fantastic early morning here on the West Coast game there to get into. And might we start to see more football in Europe? And I think it's a pretty good idea. We've got Vikings-Bills that might have been game of the year. Justin Jefferson, ridiculous catches, just an unbelievable game that would not end, and you didn't want it to end. Another overtimer with the Packers. We got prime time with the 49ers and the Chargers. A ton to get into from the Week 10 schedule that was in the NFL. Coming up right now.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode is presented by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. I want to start with the early morning in Munich. I don't think it was the game of the weekend by any means, but it was a pretty good game with the Seattle Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and Tom and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pulling this one out in Germany. But I think it was the atmosphere that really blew me away with those fans in Germany, and it had been a little while since there had been a game there, and Roger Goodell saying that they're definitely going to be going back, and it just made me think, how can we not, like, there's the XFL's like trying to do another one, and then there's the AAF that happened. It's like, what was wrong with NFL Europe? I feel like that was an iteration of non-NFL pro football, had some ties to the NFL. There's players that you could watch and say, hey, this is going to be a player on our football team, a true minor league system. And I think if you're trying to grow this thing globally, having those teams in Europe was a pretty cool thing. And seeing how the London fans have come strong and the Germany fans have come really strong there to some of these NFL games recently, and got Mexico coming up next week. I mean, I'm sure you can't have a Mexico team playing against the Germany team, but you can have NFL Europe. Like, what can we get NFL Europe back? Is I guess where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that, but I think that's a good call. I mean, maybe an 8-team league. There were a lot of brand name coaches. There were a lot of young coaches that got to start there. Good place to develop quarterbacks and linemen. There's certainly the facilities overseas to handle it, from what I understand, what it looks like here. Very interesting game, but maybe even a more interesting environment, as you mentioned. And I didn't pay attention to this because I was on the next game and doing the Steeler pregame show and stuff. But my son said the fans didn't even leave the stadium. Like they stayed there and singing songs, and like they do things differently than we do. They had a good. They made a day of it.
They did not get up and leave when the game was over. They were like, we're gonna be here for a while. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And it was funny to watch. It just like we had projected in this game. I think we did a pretty good job projecting a lot of these games, Matt. Little tap on the back there for us from our predictions episodes. The Seahawks, about the time I woke up to start watching this game, because I wasn't going to catch the 6:30 a.m. kickoff on the West Coast.
Right.
But right around 8 o'clock, 8:30, second half of the game, I started watching it, and that's about the time the West Coast Seahawks woke up in this game. They were blanked in the first half and then started to come back. They weren't able to come back all the way. The Buccaneers did win this game, but clearly that affected the Seahawks because they were non-existent in the first half. But I thought that was interesting just because right about the time I woke up, normal body clock stuff, the Seahawks kind of woke up in this game.
Yeah, I'm going to die on that hill. I've been talking about it all week, that's a massive disadvantage for Seattle. I don't know if it's factual or not, but I mean, that influenced my pick greatly. And I think it played out that way, as you mentioned. But I know we're going to talk Packers here in a little. Brady and Rodgers must have some input on this. They're not just Joe Average rookie quarterback, of course. Those two teams won, and those two teams ran the football. I mean, 44 rushing attempts compared to 30 throws from Tom. Shut down Seattle's running game. I mean, Kenneth Walker, 10 for 17, long of 5 yards. And it was mostly Rachaad White. controlling the tempo and flow of the game, the physicality of it, time of possession. I mean, I don't know if the Bucs are a contender. There's a lot of football left for them to figure things out. This was a massive step in the right direction. You also heard another NFC team, but I mean, I feel like they're destined to win the South. I mean, I don't see any other competitors there. Yeah. And they're only 5-5.
And a reset with both Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers teams, like a reset in mentality. Both quarterbacks called out effort during the week with their teams. And something had to change and do something with Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and you expect that they're able to get it righted. And maybe they did this week with the Buccaneers and both the Packers. We'll talk a little bit more about the Packers game from a fantasy perspective here in this one. Rachaad White, is he the guy now for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Because he probably should be. And Godwin, looking more like the old Godwin. Maybe you're getting the old Chris Godwin back for your fantasy teams going forward here too with Tom Brady.
Yeah, and then there's some younger dudes like as you mentioned, White, Otten, that are bring a little juice, and Julio Jones looks okay. I mean, I don't know how long that's going to hang on, but he had a little bit of spark to him as well.
And he took that hit going into the end zone. It's like, oh, he's going to get hurt on that, isn't he?
Right.
Yes, no, kind of thing.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's good to see. I mean, if anyone's going to get things back on track, you got to bet on Brady and the Bucs, especially in that division. And, I don't know if Green Bay's buried yet or not, but they don't have a Vikings in their division in the South. So we'll see.
Yeah, in the South, they're running away with it at 5-5.
You're right, 5-5. Saints are bad. Panthers are bad.
Speaking of those Vikings, 8-1 now after a big win on the road at the 6-3 Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen ended up playing in this game. Didn't really even look too hampered, especially in the first half of the game. They had some struggles in the second half, though. Only a couple of field goals for the Bills offense. The Vikings were able to come all the way back in miraculous fashion. There was the ridiculous Justin Jefferson catch. There was the touchdown, non-touchdown. There was the Buffalo Bills taking the ball over at the goal line, just needed to get an inch and not retreat into the end zone. And not only was it not a safety even, which wouldn't have been that bad, it was a fumble and a touchdown for the Vikings. Then it goes into overtime. And I mean, just an insane game there for the Buffalo Bills and the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings somehow came out with the win there, and they've come back multiple times this year and now have a really good statement game on their resume that they beat a really good team.
8-1, you go to Buffalo and win no matter what the circumstances. You have to take this team seriously. I think their only losses to the Eagles as well. It's not like it was they lost to Houston or something like that. They got a couple things in their favor. You don't always fumble on your own goal line coming out. I mean, they probably don't win that game otherwise.
Right.
Everyone's calling it the game of the year, the catch of the year. Sure. I mean, I'm sure 2 weeks from now, there'll be another one, that's a game of the year and the catch of the year. But there was a phenomenal, entertaining football game. I'm not taking anything away from Minnesota. That's not what this is meant to be. But I was not impressed with Cousins. Allen continues to throw head-scratching picks, and I'm sure he's not 100%, but that's not the reason. There's a couple mental things the last few weeks. And the Bills are dealing with a lot of defensive injuries, but they're still really good. And it's in Buffalo, and you got the win. And Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson were the engines. Stephon Diggs chipped in with a big day as well. I think Hawkinson is a very nice addition that just kind of is something different than Cook and Jefferson.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins ended up chucking it 50 times. Does this help Kirk Cousins get the monkey off his back, like to win a big game?
I guess. I mean, it's a step in the right direction, but that monkey might live on his back.
Okay.
He's been there a long time.
The other question I come away with in this game is Justin Jefferson the best receiver in the league? How much better is he than everybody else? How far away is number 2 after Justin Jefferson?
What Tyreek is doing, though, I mean, there's 4 or 5 that are sick. I mean, Jamar Chase is a little down. I mean, Adams is bouncing back in a big way. Nobody noticed, but Stephon Diggs caught 12 for 128, also on 16 targets. I think Tyreek's one, to be honest with you. I mean, Kupp's not bad. I mean, imagine if there was something around him. There's 5 or 6 that we knew were going to be good that are living up or passing that expectation.
Yeah, but what Tyreek's doing is pretty crazy.
It's pretty crazy
as well. So definitely deserves to be in that conversation as the best.
Jefferson,
but man, when you really need it, they just kept going to Jefferson.
Yep.
Guys on him, guys hitting them early, just pulling the ball away from dudes. I mean, that's the type of, like, you want to be an alpha, you want to be a true wide receiver one. That's what it looks like.
Absolutely. The whole world knew it was coming, and it got that way. Excuse me, the water went down the wrong pipe. But CeeDee Lamb did some of that today too for Dallas. I know we're not talking Dallas. I just was throwing him out there.
Well, we're going to talk Dallas next.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. Look at that.
We've got the Dallas Cowboys and the Green Bay Packers went into overtime. There was a lot to like on both sides of the football. Did the Packers get right? We'll talk 49ers Chargers Sunday night football game. We had battle of the backups with the Cardinals and the Rams, and what did turn out to be a pretty good game in the NFC North with the Lions and the Bears going right down to the wire. Comeback win for the Detroit Lions. Ton to get to on today's Monday episode of Peacock and Williamson. This holiday, find what you love at Total Wine and More. With so many great bottles to choose from, it's easy to find a new favorite single barrel bourbon or whatever it is you're looking for. Maybe that little bit of smoky mezcal is what you want for somebody. Maybe a bottle of bubbly to celebrate the holidays. The perfect gifts for everyone on your list with some help from a friendly guide, and all with the confidence of knowing you found something special for the lowest price. Find what you love what you find, only at Total Wine and More. Curbside pickup and delivery available in most areas. Visit TotalWine.com to learn more. Spirits not sold in Virginia and North Carolina. Drink responsibly and be 21. Thanks, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Did the Packers figure something out here, or was this all just because they got a breakout from one of their wide receivers finally?
I don't know, because I do think it correlates with the Tampa Bay discussion, and a word I meant to use when describing Brady's performance absolutely applies to Rodgers too, and that is efficient. This game was overtime, and Rodgers still only threw 20 passes, but he was very good doing it. 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, back to that Rodgers like TD, interception ratio. But it was all about Aaron Jones with some A.J. Dillon in there too. Both these teams, the two Bays, leaned on a good running game, neutralized a good Cowboys defense, and maybe they have something here in this Watson fella. I'm sure he'll be the hot pickup in fantasy, and it wouldn't shock me if next week he catches 2 balls for 18. Yep. He does have some boom or bust nature to him, but it's interesting. He was their highest drafted guy. The opportunity is absolutely there. But it also brings me to Dallas a little bit, in that a couple things are going on in Dallas where I know we're not talking Steelers, but all week Steelers Saints, I said, if you stop Olave and Kamara, you're going to be in it. If you only have 2 real weapons in today's NFL, that's not enough. And right now I feel like it's Lamb and Pollard, and that's all they have right now in Dallas, that they're a guy short. And those 2 are great, and they were phenomenal in this game, but you need a third.
CeeDee Lamb, 11 for 150, 2 touchdowns. He had 15 targets. Like, that is target hog usage for a wide receiver there. And he was up to the challenge of making tons of catches, making a lot of catches in traffic.
He was another one like Jefferson. When they needed it, the whole world knew it was going to Lamb, and good luck.
Yes, and I feel like Dak Prescott, because you nailed it with the Aaron Rodgers efficiency, Dak Prescott ended up throwing 46 times and then throwing a couple interceptions, and those were the backbreakers in this game.
Absolutely.
Still only 265 yards on his 46 attempts, whereas Rodgers was 224 on 20 attempts. So, yeah, the efficiency at quarterback, leaning on the running game, 37 attempts by the Packers running backs. That's what you're looking for. Both of them over 5 yards per carry. Now the Packers have the blueprint, and you hope young Christian Watson, who's got all the talent and now has the opportunity. He led the team in targets, 8 targets, 4 catches for 107, big plays, got speed, 3 of them for touchdowns. All 3 of Rodgers' touchdown passes go to Christian Watson. He doesn't have to be 15 targets and 11 catches every week, but to have somebody that you can start to trust can get open and make those big plays, and Rodgers can start going to you a little bit more. Now you're talking there with the Packers.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to turn into CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson. But with his speed, if they're running the ball the way they were, and Rodgers sees one-on-one with Watson, that's enough. Just somebody that's big and long and can get downfield, and Watson trusts him to, do fine against single coverage. He's going to throw him the ball, and there's going to be big plays because, Rodgers threw the ball extremely well in this game. I'm not particularly worried about Dallas, but their defense is not quite where it was earlier in the season. And I think Parsons is fighting some injuries. He's also off the ball a little bit more as opposed to rushing the passer every snap, which I think is a mistake.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. Like he's
Yeah.
he's an edge. That's where his value is.
Yeah.
Put him
The
on
other
the edge.
stuff's great,
Get a
but
matchup quarterback. Right.
Right.
Exactly. So yeah, Packers now 4-6, and they're better than a 4-6 team. And you started to see a little bit of that this week. They beat the Cowboys, who are now falling to 6-3, still in a really good spot with their playoff run. But looking up at the team that's playing Monday Night Football this week, the 8-0 Philadelphia Eagles. We'll have more on the Eagles-Commanders game on tomorrow's episode of Peacock and Williamson. Let's go to prime time here. Chargers 49ers. The Niners were able to hold on and win this game 22-16. And with the way it looked on the first couple of series of the game with the Chargers and 49ers offenses going down the field, it was like, oh, is this going to be a shootout? And no, that is not at all what happened. In fact, there was 3 field goals in the second half, all by the 49ers, which was the difference in this game. And D'Amico Ryan's defense blanked the Chargers and kept them out of the end zone after the first drive and held them to only field goals in the first half and blanked them in the second half. So really, this was a game where the 49ers ran the ball as much as they could and tried to allow their defense to win the game for them. And that's exactly what happened. So 49ers and the Chargers now both sitting at 5-4 after 9 games.
Yeah. And I kind of feel like the Chargers have been dealt a rough hand, that they really just need to survive, win a couple more easy ones. Hopefully you get back, 5 core players or so that they're missing, including like Bosa, obviously, and Keenan Allen. I don't have a lot more to add than what you said. I mean, I was impressed with how LA came out early, as well as Herbert making nice throws, but then it just looked like they got worn down, that they just don't have the depth. They don't have the high-end talent. They don't have the run defense. And the Niners just keep coming at you with so many guys on both sides of the ball. I mean, there's a lot of defensive playmakers. There's a ton of offensive playmakers now. And even if McCaffrey and Debo don't have monster games, Kittle only catches 1 pass, well, then this is the game Ayuk and Mitchell, get there, beat you, or Jennings has a nice day, or, so it's just so hard to defend a basketball team that has 5 big-time scorers, and that's what San Fran feels like right now.
Right, yeah, and they're able to spread the ball around in a way that if you're really keying on guys like Debo and McCaffrey, and they kind of operate in a similar area in the field, then it's going to open things up for other players. And, Ayuk's been singled up for a month straight, every snap, and you can
really
see that
good
in production. And Juwan Jennings on third downs is like, can you beat a guy as a big slot? And they're using him as sort of, a quasi tight end at times with the routes he's running. And on third downs, he's been huge for them. And Elijah Mitchell, nice to see him back. He's using a little bit of the thump there too. And he was kind of the close it out running back. It was Elijah Mitchell on the field as the main back and not Christian McCaffrey late once they got a lead in that game, which is really interesting. So I think on the 49ers offense, it's just not high volume enough. It's going to be a different guy every week there. Which might hurt some of the fantasy appeal for some of their playmakers, even though they have so many. But really, you look at the quarterback play in this game, and Garoppolo was great on third downs and was more efficient. It was much like that Dak and Aaron Rodgers line. 19 of 28 for Jimmy Garoppolo. Didn't throw any touchdowns, but didn't have any interceptions. Only sacked 1 time, got the ball out quick, 240 yards passing. And Justin Herbert, after that first drive, I mean, he was struggling to try to find somebody that was open, trying to find somewhere to go with the ball. And it was just all on him, dropping back 35 times, only 196 passing yards. I mean, that is really inefficient. 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So it wasn't terrible by any means, but there were just, you feel bad for Herbert. He needs some of his weapons back.
Yeah. I mean, the Carters and Palmers and Everetts of the world, if they're your 3rd, 4th, 5th option, or maybe even 4th, 5th, 6th, when you put Eckler at 3, now you're humming. It's just they just don't have their horses, and it's too much on Herbert, and the line's not good enough to deal with it. You kind of addressed this, but Twitter question from Mike Williamson through Matt Williamson: is it time to trade Debo Samuel, Dad? He's been asking me this all day.
I mean, I don't think so. It doesn't make sense for the 49ers to have done what they did and then not utilize Debo Samuel.
There's a lot of mouths.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of mouths to feed. To be honest with you, I think what happens in the offseason is maybe Brandon Ayuk is the guy that ends up going, because I don't think the 49ers can get rid of Debo Samuel.
Oh, I'm talking only fantasy.
You're talking to fantasy.
My son's fantasy team. He's trying to turn Debo into Lamar. Is it time to move on from Debo for fantasy this year?
I think that the consistency for Debo might not be there. There's going to be a game or two that he goes off, but the consistency's not there. If you can get value, I would I would entertain that for sure.
Yeah, that was my advice as well. But I figured I'd ask the expert.
No, that's a good question. Great question by Mike. Mike from Pittsburgh. All right. More to get to from this schedule of Week 10 games. There was Jeff Saturday getting his inaugural win as interim head coach. The Colts are back. Colts are back, baby, with Matt Ryan at quarterback. Are they back? A couple notes on your Steelers and some other games to get into here with a blowout win for the Miami Dolphins. All that and more coming up to finish up this episode of Peacock and Williamson. And if you want to play along, daily fantasy made easy by our friends at PrizePicks. You want to play along with Monday Night Football. Maybe you didn't have a great fantasy week. Well, that's what daily fantasy is all about. Monday night, there are still games going, and you can have a whole bunch of fun, and it's super easy to play. Make an entry in less than 60 seconds at PrizePicks. And how does it work? Easy. Pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people either. It's just you versus those projections available at PrizePicks. Tons of good projections available for Monday Night Football as well with the Eagles and Washington. PrizePicks offers not just NFL projections either. We're talking NBA, NHL, golf, college sports, esports, motorsports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, you name it. You can find projections at PrizePicks. Withdrawals are safe and fast, and PrizePicks is currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code Locked On at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Is it time to worry about the Arizona Cardinals? We've already worried a lot about the Rams, who lost in this game with their backup quarterbacks. And you shouldn't look. I don't know how to phrase this for the Cardinals. And of course, they had their backup quarterback in as well. It was against Wolford in this game at quarterback with the Cardinals and the Rams. Cardinals winning 27-17. Cardinals now bypass the Rams for third place in the NFC West at 4-6, and the Rams are now 3-6. But when Colt McCoy doesn't give you less of a chance to win games than Kyler Murray, what is going on? What's the shakeup? Because it's becoming clear that this offseason, and there has to be a shakeup. Is it GM? Is it head coach? Is it quarterback? Like, I can't figure out what this team is even supposed to be, let alone what they are.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I didn't know where you're going with that until what you mentioned. And I don't think we're implying that they're a better football team with McCoy, but the fact that falls out of our mouth in any way, shape, or form is
And last year when McCoy played, they won some games. It's not a problem, and it should be a problem to go from Kyler Murray to Colt McCoy.
Yeah, but they play it closer to the vest. They don't turn the ball over. It's a little more balanced. It seems like there's less of an agenda. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too much into it. I just think the team building here, probably starting at GM, maybe even ownership down to quarterback with head coach in between there, is very flawed. And I feel like we've all seen this coming. I mean, I don't think the personalities are tremendous, but at least in this game, to your point, they got out to a fast start, which hasn't happened at all this year. They played pretty good defense against what I think is a broken Rams team. And boy, I hope Kupp isn't out any amount of time or they're never going to score another point. I have no confidence in either one of these teams.
Hey, Wolford had a nice little touchdown pass late in that game. It was a good throw. But look, even with Stafford in there, the Rams, like first to worst, it's kind of scary how bad the Rams are.
Inevitable. 66 rushing yards. And I'm sitting here looking at it. 6 different guys got carries. No one more than 6. They have no foundation other than Kupp. And I don't think Ramsey and Donald are losing anything, but they're not taking over games, and they're not designed to win 17-13.
The cast around Donald and Ramsey is worse on defense this year, clearly. And the Rams offensive line, you can't run or throw. So it doesn't matter who's a quarterback, or it doesn't matter if you have Kupp, because you can't run the ball and you don't have to run your full offense throwing the ball either. So yeah, Rams are in bad shape. And unlike the Packers and the Bucs, it's a lot harder to see them turning it around.
Yes, I think they're shot. Where I think the Packers have an outside shot at the playoffs. I think the Bucs are going to make the playoffs. I think the Rams basically have no shot. I don't think Arizona's anything resembling a contender either.
No, I would not. I would not expect the Cardinals to win enough games or worry any teams that were going to be making the playoffs.
So is this safe to say from a Niner perspective that Seattle's the team you worry about most in the division right now?
Oh, yeah, not even close.
Okay,
right.
Yeah,
yes,
I
for
totally
sure.
agree.
And really, in a lot of ways, you're worried about yourself. I think if you're the
in that case, yeah,
get yourself right, and you're a playoff team, whether you win the West or not, and you're going to be one of those 7.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean,
and there's starting to be a gap between the top 7, and it's like everybody over 500 there's 7 teams over 500, and the rest are not. And it's starting to be like, okay, I don't even know if any of these teams are going to be leap from where they are. Like we might already have the playoff 7 with some very minor jockeying for position in the NFC already. What's starting to look like.
That's interesting because I hadn't thought of that from an NFC perspective. And I assume you're including the Giants in there. You have to. They have a good record. But yeah, there is 7 teams right now that are clearly the playoff teams at least.
Oh, the Giants at 7-2.
Right.
Completely collapsed to not make the playoffs at this point.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right.
How about Jeff Saturday? Did Jim Irsay find some magic with Jeff Saturday coming in and coaching the Indianapolis Colts to victory in his first game as head coach? Congratulations to Jeff Saturday. 25-20 over the Las Vegas Raiders, and Matt Ryan back in at quarterback for those Colts.
Yeah, and I wasn't kind to the Irsay decision to hire Saturday, and I think it's a bit of a travesty no matter what. But I also think the Raiders are very broken and are amongst the most disappointing teams in the league. Their defense is really, really bad. But I give Saturday credit. I mean, he installed an NFL quarterback, whether Ryan's shot or not. He's an NFL quarterback that's been around the block. They got it out of his hands very quick to help an ailing offensive line, and that line wasn't exploited as much. Got Taylor rolling again. He had a long touchdown, but it was the Taylor show, as we all expected. But what I didn't see coming, especially with that, was a lot of explosive plays. I mean, Matt Ryan had a 39-yard run. Taylor had a 66-yard run. I mean, their receivers, they had a lot of chunk yardage plays, which I did not see coming. I don't know how sustainable this is for Indy, but believe it or not, they're 4-5-1. I mean, they're not really in that bad a shape. Could they catch Tennessee? Possibly. And the Raiders are more disappointing than the last 2 teams we talked about, which is a mouthful.
Right. And that's tough. So for the Colts, it's still difficult because they have to win the division.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
They do.
And I don't know what the record is. I would love to see this all time for interim coaches. So I don't think the interim coach records are good. But I would be willing to bet the first or second game. Like if you just took the first 2 weeks sample of interim coaches and look at those records, I bet interim coaches are over 500 all time.
I bet they are. Or even if they're 500, that's out shooting their coverage. You know?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
So we'll see if that's sustainable. It's a great word by you, and I don't think it is for the Colts, but we'll find out going forward. And for the Raiders, we just know who they are now, and they might be the worst team in the NFL. It's crazy.
Yeah, they're at the bottom of the list.
They're not the worst team, but they're bottom 3.
They're bottom 3, and their defense is really bad.
Not good situation for a first-year coach. Could it be one and done with Josh McDaniels there?
I think you have to consider it.
Your Steelers, they're a different team with TJ Watt. Are they going to make a run, Matt?
The second half of the schedule is a lot of Saints and Panthers and Falcons and Colts. So they will look much better, and I've been predicting this all along. The second half of the year. First half of the year was the hardest schedule in the league. TJ's a massive difference maker, and they ran the football.
There you go. Not dead yet, those Pittsburgh Steelers. All right. Thanks, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen. Get your questions in for our mailbag later in the week at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL. Talk to you next time right here, Peacock and Williamson.